So a Métis harvester, in my mind, is a person who comes from a Métis family and has been raised in some way within a Métis culture.
You know, all harvesters are harvesters, but Métis harvesters is more a cultural thing. It's something that I've done with my dad and everybody. It's a way of life. You know, harvesting for Métis people is not just the harvest, it's getting out, it's being out in the bush. It's there's a lot more to it than just what you bring home.
It's important because it helps feed us, not only physically, but culturally, spiritually. It's part of us. We do it as families, we do it as communities. It's part of what makes us Métis, and it's part of what keeps us together.
Anybody that is a Métis Nation BC citizen is eligible to apply for a harvester's card. There's two kinds. There's one with hunting, which requires safety education and allows the hunting of species with firearms or bows and arrows. The other is without hunting, which is for fishing, for berry picking, for medicine gathering, for all of the other things, including minerals that Métis take from the land for their own use.
One of the things that we see is a lot of confusion amongst people about who a Métis person is. We do get a little concerned that people who are not legitimately Métis may go and try and exercise harvesting rights that are legitimately ours and make it more difficult for us to then justify those rights.
Data means everything to the government. The Harvester Survey is a way of us proving that Métis are still using the land. And it, you know, when we write down, we're out there, whether it's gathering medicine or firewood or harvesting animals or fishing, it's a way of showing that Métis still are out there using the land.
Métis report to Métis Nation BC and BCMANR what the success of their harvests were. And that includes the non-success. I mean, we want to know if people spent 10 days hunting moose and didn't get a moose. That's important information as well.
We also need to use that information with government to show that we do exercise our rights, that we do exercise those rights all over BC.
Survey collects a lot of data on time spent, species hunted, species harvested, in some cases biological data about the species, like how many points your deer had, which doesn't seem by nature to be that important, but it's an indication of maturity. So if your deer had 1 point, it was probably a year old. If it had 10 points, it probably was several years old.
In order to use the information from the survey, you really need to know who's collecting, where they're collecting, how much they're collecting, some specific information around different animals, different plants, different areas. So we need to be able to locate it. And usually we do that through the various management areas that BC government's defined.
Well, stewardship of the land is very important. It is taking care of the land, but know what's the way we want it to be, what we want to leave for our grandkids.
We have a history of being stewards. It's not uncommon that we would want to contribute more to the stewardship of species, and particularly now. And there's lots of stuff that it's in decline. In some cases, it's extirpated locally, but in other cases, there's some species that are returning. Were we part of that? Maybe so, maybe not, but it's good to think that we could be part of saving wildlife species, fishery species. And so it's something that we like.
Métis culture and Métis history is so bound up with harvesting that if we don't have those resources it really diminishes who we are as a people. It's tightly bound to who we are. So we need to make sure that we look after those resources. We also need to make sure that in dealing with government, dealing with First Nations about our resource use, that we have a very clear idea of what we're using and what that impact's going to be, and that we're not taking away from our First Nation relations or society as a whole. Our footprint on the land is very light. We do harvest, we do feed our families and our communities through harvesting, but our impact in doing that is just a small fraction of what the population as a whole does. We are exercising our rights, but we're also monitoring what we're doing and harvesting sustainably and responsibly.